Excellent. An ale for me. And for my officers. In fact, ales for everyone.
10 Backward. With Rick and Will and Gemma.
Oh, yes.
Hello and welcome to another episode of 10 Backward, a Star Trek podcast based in the UK. I'm Rick Palmer, and for this episode I'm joined as ever by my good friends Will Turland.
Hello.
Gemma Turland.
Hello.
And Rick Everson.
Hello.
Now for the past 10 episodes we've done an episode review each week of Star Trek Picard, but now Picard has finished, basically. So we're going back to our more usual format of choosing a theme about which Star Trek represents and episodes that represent that theme. So we're back to our normal way of doing episodes, guys.
Yeah.
And we were thinking...
Although we are still, I was going to say, although we're still doing this remotely because we're in the midst of coronavirus lockdown.
Yeah.
So we're doing it over the internet.
And that is what's inspired our theme for this episode, which is episodes which feature the outbreak of a virus.
Yeah. And originally we were only going to do a couple of episodes,
But we got carried away.
Yeah, we did get carried away because and also like confused over which episodes we were watching.
I think mostly the latter of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's always usually our episodes sort of evolve organically through a combination of bad planning and miscommunication. And that's definitely the case here.
Indeed.
We sort of discovered that actually, from all the episodes we watched, we were really close to having one episode from every series of like, I guess the old series of Star Trek, pre-2009 Star Trek.
We haven't done,
And we just made a little extra effort to cover, it was DS9, that was the one we were missing. And we covered that. Now we can cover all of the different series. We've got one episode from each series, I guess.
apart from,
Except for the animated series.
and Disco.
Well, Gemma, I think you found I qualified what I said by saying pre-2009.
Yes, but then you went on to say every.
Well,
So, you're giving mixed messages.
I'm going to go... All right, I'm going to go in the edit. I'm going to cut out the bit where I say every, and then you'll look like you're trying to gaslight me. Whereas, in fact, that would literally be a case of me gaslighting.
Me, yeah. The irony being.
Yeah.
I worry about you abusing your editing powers sometimes.
That bit's getting cut out.
I was really struck by how awesome your editing powers. I was really impressed with that. Excellent. Yeah. So yeah, these episodes we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I was thinking, could we, because we haven't really necessarily got time to go through every episode and sort of break down exactly what happens, which in minute detail, which is what we would usually do. I was thinking,
we probably will end up doing something similar.
We almost definitely will end up doing that because I've just said we shouldn't do that. Virus talk about what the episode is and what the virus is in it, and whether it is actually a virus or
because
not.
there is one that definitely isn't a virus.
Yeah, which was my suggestion. And as often when we do 10 Backward podcasts, my suggestion is the one that doesn't actually properly fit what we've suggested. What the theme. But yeah, so I suppose going at like Star Trek chronology, the episode of Enterprise that I'd called out as a kind of virus episode is an episode called Impulse. And in that episode, the crew come across a ghost ship. It's a Vulcan ship.
It's on a wonk. Some bits missing.
Yeah.
Oh, I was really struck by how awesome that ship looked. There's literally massive pieces of the hull plating missing, and you see like quite intricate webbing of support structures and bits of deck. It's just really, it looks awesome. I was really impressed with that.
And of course, it's an HD, isn't it? Enterprise, so it's it's really nice.
Yes.
And so they find this ship and they go and investigate, and basically the whole Vulcan crew have been turned into rage zombies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the bulk of the episode is kind of it's like a zombie movie, effectively, which is what made me think of it in terms of doing a sort of virus outbreak.
Yes.
And also because one of the crew is Paul is infected by the thing, so
she's
affected.
She's effectively it's like she's been bitten by a zombie, and she is slowly turning into a rage zombie.
It's the asteroid girl, isn't it? It's prolonged exposure to.
Well, it's Trillium D, isn't it?
Trillium D,
yeah.
Which they were trying to use to shield themselves from the anomalies in the Expanse.
Yes.
But it has the bizarre side effect of zombifying just Vulcans.
Yeah. It's a neurotoxin, which makes them. It has an odd kind of array of effects.
That's right, because I think the idea is that like they can't suppress their emotions anymore, so they kind of become rage zombies. But as you that it also affects their skin.
It affects their skin.
They get all crazy.
Yeah, they're crazy. They can't walk properly. They're all kind of zombified.
Yeah,
but they do have higher reasoning.
Except when they don't.
Except when they're faced with a big hole in the ground.
Right.
So they can reason enough to poison the air in the room
that the Enterprise crew are hiding
in, but they can't face a big hole in the ground.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. The episode is a little bit inconsistent in terms of what the effects of that rate of that sort of virus is.
But to quote Alan Partridge, zombies by their very nature are inconsistent.
You've made a very good point.
These are a kind of zombie.
That's true though, because these are, if you're thinking of them in terms of zombies, they're fast zombies, aren't they? Which a lot of zombie connoisseurs would be angry at.
Yes,
but
not a fan of the fast zombie.
I'm okay with the fast zombie though. Depends on how good the film is that the fast zombie is in. But they're halfway between a slow and a fast zombie. Yeah,
they're walking at
the zombie I miss is voodoo zombies. I feel like we haven't seen a voodoo zombie in about 80 years, maybe even more.
Yeah. I think there might be reasons for that.
They would have done voodoo zombies in TNG if they could have done. Definitely in the first few seasons. But yes, so that's what the quotation fingers virus is in Impulse, but it's not actually a virus, is it? It's exposure to Trillium D.
Just going back to the inconsistency, I think this episode also highlights another inconsistency that Trek has had ironically, almost consistently since TOS, in that Vulcan strength isn't shown to be as incredibly superior to humans as it always was.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
TOS made a big thing that Spock was like super strong, and Kirk had absolutely no hope against him. But then since then, like Tuvok was never shown to have particularly superhuman strength in Voyager.
No,
and Archer and Reed don't have a great deal of trouble fighting off these Vulcans.
They do with the phaser, the stun setting on the phaser are quite ineffective against the Vulcans. But for some reason, if you just smack them in the face, they go down like a regular person would.
Yeah.
So that's weird.
The face is very hurty.
Yeah.
But I did think didn't someone get thrown or something? There was during some hand-to-hand combat, there was a little hint towards it.
Yeah, I think there was a point where one of the Makos literally got chucked across the room, and I was a bit like, that's odd, because earlier they, Archer had no trouble like breaking off when one of these guys grabbed him. So
yeah, and there's one time when Archer gives one a right good kicking in a hallway, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. It's funny because they're really careful to have the phasers on stun through the whole episode, because they're pretty sure that they can save them. Yeah. Like they're very conscious of the fact that these are these are people, and they want to try and save them from this virus. But towards the end, they telephone Dr. Phlox, and he's like, "No, nothing can be done." You're like, "Are you sure? I mean, how much have you looked at?" He's like, "No," and like, "Oh, okay."
What about the Vulcan crew? Phlox, do you read me?
I'm afraid there's nothing we can do for the others. They've been exposed for too long. The neurological damage is irreversible. They're dying, Captain.
Weirdly, they still keep their phasers on stun. And I felt like that was just an excuse so that they could have the ship blow up at the end, and it'd be cool because there'd be an explosion.
Which it was cool.
It was cool, yeah.
I don't know though. I think I think it shows to be kind. It shows a resistance towards killing. I think that's fair enough. But if they can stop them without actually killing them,
yeah. Also, Dr. Phlox gives up way too easily sometimes.
Yeah. Maybe he was on his, maybe he was just really tired. But I was thinking this. So this outbreak, none of the Vulcans who were infected survive, except for T'Pol, because she's infected, but they get her back to the ship in time to be able to deal with it. So I think it's something like 120 crew on that ship, all dead. So it's pretty lethal, this one.
Yeah.
Compared with some of the other episodes that we're looking at.
I know we've kind of like ripped a lot of it apart there, but it's actually a really good episode. It's lots of. I can totally see why you picked it with the very thin premise of it fitting into virus things when it really kind of doesn't. But it's a great episode. It's really, really enjoyable as a take on zombie movie stuff. It's so well done.
I think it's a great action episode. I think you could criticize it and say it's a little thin on story. Although I really like all the character stuff that T'Pol gets in this episode. But it's like, it's pretty thrilling, I think, from start to end. And not only have you got the action on the deserted Vulcan ship and the sort of horror element, you've got a pretty exciting B story with the... Okay, you didn't think that was exciting.
Not personally.
There's like a little asteroid chase sequence, and the shuttle gets damaged, and I just thought it was, I guess, coming out of watching 10 episodes of Star Trek Picard, which I really, really enjoyed, but I did find was quite slow paced sometimes. This was like a completely different kind of Star Trek.
Although oddly, I think when you say it's very thin on story, in a way, it's kind of in the context. This is obviously one part of the larger series arc for the Xindi. And so while there isn't much in this 45 minutes, there's threads laid here, particularly around the Trellium D and the effect of it on Vulcans and that knock-on effect through the rest of the series. And in fact, into the next one, because Arch is questioned pretty hard when they get back to Earth about what he did to this, the final fate of the Slayer. So,
I do like, because a lot of things. There's no reset button on this.
Yes,
and yes, as you say, Rick, the repercussions of this episode.
Yeah,
and we end the episode on a pretty nightmarish sequence where T'Pol is off to movie night, and
you think
it's almost like she's sort of still infected, and it's a dream sequence, but it's like it's quite a horrifying one, and it's like it's a dark ending, that they could only do on a show like Enterprise, where there is the continuity to sort of follow that up. And that's something I think that's really good about this episode, is that the consequences go into the rest of the series. Do you think should we talk about the next episode in sort of Star Trek timeline continuity?
Yeah,
which I guess is the original series episode that we looked at,
The Naked Time.
Excellent.
The Naked Time. So Rick, you'd watched this episode, hadn't you? Because I think we were talking about The Naked Now, but you'd watched The Naked Time instead.
Yeah, I told you guys I'd watch The Naked Now, but I'd watch The Naked Time.
Yeah.
Then I had to watch The Naked Now because. But yeah,
and I had to watch The Naked Time.
The Naked Time it's about the 5th episode of the first season of the original series, and it's really good. It's an excellent episode. I thought it kind of opens where the Enterprise is going to a planet to meet up with a team that's observing the destruction of this planet. This planet is pretty old, and its star has died, and it's in its death throes basically. But they find that the science team they're all dead, and they all seem to have either given up and just stopped doing stuff and frozen to death, or there's a range of bizarre deaths basically. And
someone's had a shower with their clothes on.
which
made me chuckle, because it was like, that's the nuttiest possible thing that someone could showering with your clothes. It is nutty though. It is a nutty thing to do.
Better look for yourself, Mr. Spock. One man was taking a shower, fully clothed.
But the opening has a pretty good setup for procedures in an event like this, because Spock and another guy, who I think is called like Tormelin or something, his surname's it's like Joe Tormodin or something. So him and Spock beam down in hazmat suits, or Star Trek versions of hazmat suits, and all's going very well.
Which is way more sensible than just like in TNG. They just go down in the regular uniforms, wouldn't they?
But there's a
baby grade.
There's a bit where this he's not really a red shirt because he does die, but he gets an itchy nose, and he takes his glove off to scratch his nose, and it's just a health and safety nightmare basically. But it does have a nice. There's a nice scene where he kind of puts his hand around like the iced up console or something, and you see a sort of a stop animation image of this red. Well, I guess it's this red thing touch his hand and infect him, and I like that. It had a nice touch, and all the visuals at this point of the episode I thought were really well done. It's creepy. It's a really creepy beginning to an episode. Which all of these episodes I found had at some point. They're quite ominous. They have that sort of horror-esque disaster outbreak movie kind of vibe to them, which they should, I guess, considering what they're about. But and then it goes through the standard thing where they know that they need to kind of make sure that it doesn't get on the ship, but it does. And in the Naked Time and the Naked Now are pretty similar in terms of what happens. But I think the Naked Time tries to stay a bit more serious. Goofy stuff happens in both episodes, but I think that there's a point in the Naked Now where they just go more into the goofiness, whereas in the Naked Time, it's more serious. It feels more serious, basically.
Yeah, but it's like it is the same virus, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah,
I think, or at least it's the same. It's the same symptoms, and they even reference this episode in the Naked Now.
It's the same phenomenon, isn't it? It seems tied to both episodes are tied to sort of events happening in space, like astronomical events. So in the Naked Time, it's the destruction of a planet, and in the Naked Now, it's there's a star about to die, I think.
Yeah.
And that does something.
That's the real.
And that does something to the blood chemistry. It starts to create alcohol in your blood or something, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Because I think in the Naked Now, Crusher said it's not an infection. It's more like an intoxication.
I think Tasha's been infected too. She just left my quarters.
Counselor, it's not actually an infection.
Yes, sir. It's more like an intoxication. But whatever it is, she's got it.
And it does feel like it's basically the same virus. And the real peril comes, like you say, from the fact that all of the crew are affected by this virus, and so they can't do their jobs properly to enable the ship to, in the Naked Time, they need to break orbit, and that they can't. They're in a decaying orbit, and in the Naked Now, the sun is going to go supernova.
Yeah,
there's a lot of insubordination. Basically, like low-level insubordination. No one's really. Well, in the Naked Time, there's one guy who's pretty violent, but all the other people just seem to be kind of goofy. So Sulu just starts kind of attacking people like he's one of the Three Musketeers. There's an Irish.
He's really shiny.
Yeah,
with his top off.
There's a chap called Riley who just kind of becomes a sort of a goofy Irishman, basically. And starts singing. He starts singing the song really badly. But I did like the sense that things were getting out of control. It has that classic kind of element to an Outbreak story where the protagonists know what's happening and are trying to prevent it from getting worse, but it just sort of does.
Yeah, and I like it where in these sort of something that's similar in all of the episodes we watch is where you come to a character and they need to do something important, and you suddenly realise that they are infected as well. Like, oh no! But it's great. It's always a great moment because it just ups the tension. It's like, oh no, that person can't do their job. So now what's going to happen? And the Naked Time is got a lot of classic Star Trek stuff in it, like the whole Sulu being topless with his sword, and Scotty does say,
"I can't change the laws of physics."
At one point, because he's trying to restart the warp engines, isn't he? And he can't do it in time, basically.
What's quite fun with. Well, I say fun, depends on your definition of fun, but if you look at these episodes, considering all the stuff we're hearing at the moment about isolation and being careful of infection, their quarantine methods are appalling.
Yes.
For a start, you've referenced the fact that someone thought, when you're beaming down, it's a good idea for you guys to wear protective isolation suits. So what does Tourmaline do? Takes his glove off to scratch his nose and then puts his bare hand against the desk.
Idiot.
Yeah.
How is he even passed to go down to that planet if he hasn't had any training?
Yeah. And I like in how certainly in the Naked Now, because it's Geordie who gets infected first in the Naked Now, and he gets told to self-isolate. Well, he gets told to stay in sickbay.
Yeah.
Within like 2 minutes, he's just got up and walked out.
Yeah, he's not in any way restricted.
No one was even keeping an eye on him.
No, Crusher walks back in and she's like, where's he gone? What?
Yeah.
It's like, lock the door, Bev, come on.
She just peeps out into the corridor and she's like, oh, he's not in the immediate vicinity outside of sickbay. Oh, well.
And then she calls through to the bridge. Yar starts getting a security team shipwide search. Picard says it's ages till they find him, and he's literally in the observation line behind the bridge. I mean, how bad are their shipwide search protocols?
Yeah.
I mean, before that, he's wandered off, had a chat with Wesley, and I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's terrible self-isolating. Yeah. He's not social distancing, is he?
And before they beam the team back, Picard literally says, do the maximum decontamination magic transporter thing. So clearly someone is thinking there may be some sort of viral infectious agent thing going on. We better just screen for that. Doesn't stop anyone touching everybody all the time in that episode.
Yeah.
Yes, but they assume that their technology can protect them, so they don't have to use these not touchy methods.
I suppose that's an interesting theme that runs in all of these episodes, actually, that with all of our advanced technology and and how society is so evolved, still a simple virus outbreak can be absolutely devastating. Although I would say in both the Naked Time and I think you're right, Rick, when you say the Naked Time, they actually play it a bit more seriously, but in the Naked Now, it's far more of a sort of comical episode. And I guess the symptoms that because it is a virus, isn't it?
It is a virus. It's passed from person to person. It's not an effect of the sun or anything.
But the actual symptoms are everyone acts like they're drunk.
Yeah,
which are
which
sort of maybe the
vary.
least.
And some of them get really hot.
Yes, that's it.
So in many ways, it's like the coronavirus. It's an array of symptoms you could possibly have, or maybe not have any at all.
And it's like, I guess it's consistent in the way that is the main symptom, though. You act like you were drunk, and you're
how you would be if you were drunk.
How I would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody gets violent.
Not in the TNG one, but in the Naked Time. There's a dude who's like gonna stab himself with his dinner cutlery.
Yikes.
Like it's quite a horrific scene. Actually.
And I'm a bit. I'd be a bit wary of Sulu running around with that saber. I mean,
it does seem worrying.
He has a nutty glint in his eye.
Yeah.
But I like all of the. I do quite like all of the insubordination in these episodes. Like right near the beginning of the Naked Now, Geordie's some real back chat to Beverly. And,
I mean, we've discussed before that Geordie's character in the first season of Next Gen is a little bit all over the place. But he's like shouting at Dr. Crusher that she's got it too hot in there, and then when they say that's not like you, it's like, oh, maybe she's throwing her voice. I'm like, what?
I suppose because you have it too hot in here. What else would it be?
Doesn't sound like you, Geordie.
well, maybe it's not. Maybe she threw her voice.
Yeah, and he's like, it's just a joke. It's just a joke, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's just bants.
And it's like, it reminded me of, like, you know, if you're in a pub and there's maybe someone who's like slightly terrifying when they're drunk, and they say something that's like just sort of horribly violent, and everyone sort of exchanges glances. They're like, "Oh, guys, I was just joking. Come on." Everyone's like, "Yeah, of course." But really, you're thinking, "Oh, how can we ditch this guy before we move on to the next pub, because he's gonna stab someone tonight." So. and of course the Naked. I mean, I guess we're getting slightly off topic in terms of looking at the virus itself, but the Naked Now does have that classic scene where Tasha Yar and Data get it on, and we discover Data is fully functional in multiple techniques.
Yeah.
And there's some quite.
We say we discover. He claims it.
Yes, he claims. We never actually witness.
It might just be his bragging subroutine.
It is really uncomfortable when we get a little bit of backstory for Tasha Yar and about how she was abandoned at the age of 5 and she had to spend a lot of time trying to avoid rape gangs.
Especially when watching that with your 5 and 7-year-old children.
Yeah, because we put it on during dinner.
One of them goes, "What? What did she say?"
Yeah. She said that she was acting all crazy because of the virus, making up crazy words. I don't know what. Don't want to have to explain what a rape gang is to my children.
So the Naked Time has a guy stabbing himself, and the Naked Now a description of rape gangs. Yeah, these are not episodes to be watching with your kids.
No.
And people say the new Star Trek is too violent and adult.
I know. The heck, guys. I mean, I must admit, The Naked Now is the first episode I've ever seen. And I watched it, I was about 11. And I've got to say, the rape gang thing completely passed me by at the time. I mainly remember totally enjoying the reference back to the original series episode.
Yeah.
Even though I'd never seen the original series, so I had no... It was just like, whoa, shared universe back in 1987. So, Marvel think they're being really clever and original.
Yeah. I really remember the scene where Data is trying to... Because so in the early TNG, the chief engineer, I guess, isn't a main character at this point. And one of the engineers in engineering has just pulled out all the isolinear chips and is like stacking them up like a house of cards.
Jim someone? Jim... Japanese name.
yeah. He does some good drunk acting.
His drunk acting is pretty spot on.
And he seems sweatier than everyone else. I like that about him. But and there's a scene at the end where Data, they have to avoid like the debris from this exploded star, and they need to pop all these isolinear chips back in to be able to like move the ship. It seems odd that you just have them
exposed like
that. It seems like a bit of a design flaw. But the only one who can pop them in quickly enough is Data, and he's like does it really fast. And I really, really remember that scene from watching that the first time as a kid. That really stuck with me. I was like, that's so cool. That guy can do that really fast.
I did give a shout out on Twitter the other day because something made me think of this episode before we started discussing the plans for this discussion. That I thought Brent Spiner's drunk acting in this was particularly great. Particularly when that scene where he's putting them all back in really fast, because his facial expression is completely the shit, hold it together, you're so pissed, but you've got to hold it together just for this bit. And I just thought he totally sells that. And Brent Spiner himself liked my tweet, so I was a bit like, yes, got a like from a noteworthy actor.
I wonder if he went to the writers saying, look, can Data get drunk in this episode, please? So I can broaden my data range a little bit. I think Brent Spiner would want that. Anytime that he could do a bit more around outside of his normal data stuff, I think he'd be interested in doing that.
Usually he likes to get silly voices in if he can.
Is it explained exactly how he gets intoxicated by it? I wonder if he does the whole "if you prick me, do I not bleed" thing. No, you don't, Data. So
that is odd, because also the Crusher manages to manufacture an antidote effectively, or something that will cure them, and everyone gets that administered through a hypo spray, including Data. I was like that, but wait a minute,
he's completely synthetic, isn't he?
He's not a robot.
There's no organic component to him.
No.
Maybe they had to give the injections into his emergency inflatable penis.
Maybe. Or maybe simply kind of assimilating the behaviour to become be part of the crew.
Maybe he was never infected. He was just putting it on because he wanted to be more human.
Yeah, exactly.
In which case, it was quite irresponsible of it, wasn't it?
There is a reference to some elements of him being of an organic nature, although I think it's fairly tenuous to say that means he can get pissed. But I'm kind of by the point he's pissed, I'm kind of just like, I'm going with it. You're kind of just like, I'm just going to go with this. But
it's an early TNG So you are, looking back, you're ready for a bit of nuttiness and some inconsistencies with the characters. And I don't know, I hadn't seen The Naked Now in a long time, and I've got to admit, I don't really think it's a very good episode, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think
it's a hoot.
I think that's a good summary of it. I think as well, with them having Wesley Crusher as a character on the show, I guess maybe they need to keep it a little lighter than they did in the original series episode.
Yeah.
I've got to say, watching it this afternoon, that device that Wesley had for having Picard's voice recordings, and he can put together various fake versions of Picard's statement. That's a really clunky push-button bit of crap.
Chief Engineer, report to the bridge. Commander Riker, report to the bridge. Dr. Crusher, report to the bridge.
What do you think? I think the captain's lucky you're on his side.
Yeah,
I think it's good. I like it. I thought that was a fun thing to
I just think
have.
with all the clear touchscreen stuff they've got and the high tech stuff, it looks really out of place.
I mean, he's cobbled it together, isn't he? From it's like a little project for him. I don't know. I think that's harsh, Rick. I liked it. It's like one of those little...
He could have just recorded some WAVs on his phone or something.
But it's like one of those little things that you used to be able to get with buttons on that made like different sounds, like a fart sound and like a police siren, and I liked it. I mean, I feel like there was a point where they decided to go goofy with this episode, and I think it was probably when they decided that Data would get inebriated too. I think that's when they were going to play it for laughs more than they did with The Naked Time. Although in The Naked Time, there's a brilliant bit where Spock talks about space madness, which made me chuckle. Like that's the So
something that always strikes me in Naked Time. Once McCoy's developed the cure, Kirk stumbles onto and Kirk's in a complete daze by this point because he's drunkenly come to the horrific realization that the Enterprise now dominates his life, and he can basically never smooch up with the actual lady, despite the fact he will do this all the time. But so he stumbles onto the bridge in Kirk daze, and he doesn't even react when McCoy just rips the sleeve off his uniform and injects him with this cure. And I just thought, why have you just ripped the arm off his clothes? What are you doing? It's really weird. It's just so random that McCoy just has to yank the arm off and rip his shirt open. And Kirk just does not react. He just stares blankly ahead for the whole bit. And I'm just like, this has got really weird now.
But I think the Naked Time is a really good episode, actually.
Oh yeah.
And
that's a minor odd point in a thoroughly good episode.
Yeah. Whereas I'd say The Naked Now depends how forgiving you are of early TNG. I definitely enjoyed it. Gotta say.
You have to be kind of forgiving, really.
Yeah.
But
should we talk about the next episode in our Star Trek chronology, which I think is going to be Babel.
Yes,
because it's first season
Deep Space
DS9.
Yeah.
And
actually,
this was your suggestion, wasn't it, Rick E?
Yes. Well, I thought we're so close to having one from every series. Let's get a DS9 in. And I was thinking it's going to be this or the Quickening. But the Quickening, essentially, that nobody in our main crew gets infected, and I felt this would maybe be a better choice. Also, there's kind of, having had Naked Time and Naked Now, there's similarities in that it's a first season thing where the crew gets infected. But I think compared to the Naked Now, Babel is a much more solid, decent episode.
I mean, I don't know if I'd really seen this episode, certainly not in a long time, and I was surprised revisiting it, like how good it was. How there's some massive elements to it that are really relevant to the whole sort of coronavirus situation we have now. Like they lock down the promenade and they're closing shops and businesses, and you have people who don't want to, who are really resistant to that lockdown, and it's played quite seriously as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be fair, those very decisive, quick methods would have been effective if it wasn't for Quark. He's basically fucked the whole crew over by using some replicators and guest quarters. So well done, Quark.
Yeah,
but
there's a great moment where Odo says to him, "Well, you know,
what is going on here?
What does it look like?"
It looks like business as usual, but that's impossible because all shops and businesses have been closed until further notice.
Except, of course, for essential station operations.
For which this place hardly qualifies.
I don't think they'd agree.
Basically the attitude that the Weatherspoons boss had to the whole coronavirus lockdown thing, until he basically got ordered to close down Weatherspoons.
I think that's been one of the key things we've seen in the real world is the way people will twist the definitions to suit their purposes, and a lot of people are not willing to give up elements of their own routine until they're kind of forced to. So yeah, I thought that was quite a good way to depict that on that DS9.
Yeah,
and of course you had people like the ship's captain whose livelihood is going to be destroyed by this. If he can't leave, that's him absolutely screwed. And you know, people, that's a very serious point.
People will
take
taking their wealth and livelihood as a priority over the health of others that they're going to come in contact with.
Well, yes, but I think that's a very harsh judgment. That's his entire life. It might be his family's life.
It is, and I'm kind of coming from the
harsh to make a judgment on him for wanting to, you know, support his family, support his crew.
Yeah.
And he made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
I don't think it's come from a position of selfishness or idiocy.
I had some sympathy for him, even though he was the main cause of the sort of direct peril by the end of the episode. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, undoubtedly he did the wrong thing, but
but in the Federation there isn't a need for money, so
yeah.
Oh, that is a good point. That is a good point.
He's not a Federation.
I'm just saying why maybe it's very difficult for his viewpoint and the crew's viewpoint, while they're sort of there's no budging there because they don't really get the economical thing that he's worrying about.
Yeah,
is he paying for all the work that's being done on his ship?
No, the Federation never charged. Yeah. I mean, he's very uppity with O'Brien near the beginning.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah,
we see in a very nearby episode when the Tosk comes through the wormhole that O'Brien specifically states there, you know, we'll just fix your ship, no charge. It's cool. We'll just fix it because we're nice.
Yes, but is he allowed to leave unless his ship is space worthy? That's another thing. Wouldn't they just let him go?
The Federation will blast you out of the sky if your space MOT isn't up to date, or your space road tax.
I think in Tosk's case, he had no choice. The ship wasn't going to go anywhere without being fixed.
What did you guys think of the virus itself in this episode? Because the symptoms are quite different from what we have seen in other episodes. Then people don't turn into zombies or act like they're drunk.
They go nutty.
They get
aphasia.
And I thought this was a really interesting and a really unusual symptom, and I thought they played the sort of the sort of horror element of that really well. Because I think because you know people start talking all crazy and they can't communicate or understand.
Communication things. They can't. Yeah,
and I liked that the sort of moments of horror when people suddenly start displaying these symptoms where there's some good acting in this episode as well. I thought you know, actors get across that idea of sort of frustration and not being able to communicate well.
Yeah,
It's like being on this podcast. You've had a few drinks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that was something. When I watched it this afternoon, I sort of really enjoyed the various emotional ranges that a lot of the actors were putting on, with sort of confusion, frustration, and sort of ultimately like dejected resignation. That's like, shit, I've got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think there was a danger in this episode of those symptoms of could come off as comical, and I think they pulled it off. I think they kept it. There wasn't any point that I thought it was hilarious that everyone was talking junk nonsense, except for right near the end, where Cisco suddenly shouts, "Bread!"
All right. You can cross barrels. All job appalled. What was that? Bread.
And that did make me chuckle. And I felt guilty. So I don't know. Maybe it's just there's something funny about the word bread.
Bread.
It was like a really tense moment, and then he suddenly started displaying symptoms, and it was really unhelpful at that point in the episode.
Bread.
I think some of the best comedy in the episode probably comes from the fact that poor Odo was stuck with Quark, and they were both the only ones immune. And I think
Quark's smugness.
Well, Odo's increasingly desperate.
Smugness,
yeah. You can see the panic coming with Odo. Like, shit, I've got to run the whole station myself. Oh shit, Quark's gonna help me. Shit, me and a Quark. Oh shit, I could be stuck quarantined on the station for the rest of my life with just Quark.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant. It's one of their. It's a really nice level of interaction between them too, because Quark's totally got the upper hand and sees Odo's discomfort and maximizes that.
Yes.
I love the stuff near the end where there's Cisco sort of puts out a call to say, look, if there's anyone who can still understand me, basically who is not infected, can you please come to the bridge because we need someone to help with operations. And then he's infected and he's sort of out of the picture. Flipping Quark shows up, and the look on Odo's face. It's just great. It's a really nice comedy when Odo has to sort of beam down he needs to like release the locking clamps manually on that captain's ship because he's trying to blast off and he's gonna wreck the station. And Quark's like, oh, I think I've seen people do this before. Odo's like, what?
And Quark's like, energize.
See ya. It's a nice little moment of comedy.
Yeah,
it
does.
Witnessed? You mean to say you never handled the controls yourself?
Energizing.
And Quark has this little moment when he's down shouting at people who've been infected, trying to get them to pay their bar tabs. And I think maybe that's the better demonstration that I was maybe getting at before about the people who are maybe valuing their own economic well-being over the health of other people.
Oh yeah,
because as you say, the captain who's trying to leave has a sympathetic edge because he's desperate and he has got to provide, whereas Quark, and Quark's also doing that marvelous thing where someone doesn't understand you, so he's just going to shout louder and slower.
Yeah.
Because the Doctor's never thought about that.
He's very British at that moment, isn't he?
Yeah. It's good. This for an early Deep Space Nine episode, and you can see that this is when they were trying to make Deep Space Nine have all the feel of Next Gen type thing. The stories and everything was very reminiscent of Next Gen style because it was newly launched and the studio were keeping this close eye. And I think when they got to Series 2, everyone was looking at the end of Next Gen and then they were looking at the start of Voyager. And that's from that point, DS9 was kind of left alone and grew into its own thing. So I always find Series 1 of Deep Space Nine this interesting sort of period where they're trying to force Deep Space Nine into this next generation shaped hole in a way. And you can see some of the early stories before everyone sort of looks at other things, and then Deep Space Nine can grow into its own shape. So it's kind of a very mixed bag season. But this is a really good episode. It's thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this one. And out of all of the episodes we've picked, this feels like it's the most virus outbreaky episode.
Yes,
actually.
Yeah,
it's the one that really captures the sort of the kind of paranoia and the horror and like the repercussions of a virus outbreak. I thought.
It's the most real, I think, of the set.
Yeah. So the cause of the virus turns out to be an old device which is left on the station 18 years ago by Bajoran terrorists. And Kira gets to go off and have a little adventure and like basically kidnap a doctor and infect him herself by getting right up close to his face,
breathing right in his face,
and then
you're gonna have to solve this, buddy.
Yeah. Which, like, I don't know, ethically, it's pretty dark, but
I think job done.
You're with her though, like, because he could help and he just doesn't want to.
He refuses to.
Yeah.
And also, Kira is not Starfleet, so this is a good early demonstration that Kira does not work to the Starfleet tune. She doesn't march to that drum yet. And also, again, when you think of like the stuff now where you hear reports where people like cough in other people's face, and that's like basically it's a form of assault at this point because it's a method of deliberate. When Kira gets right up close to that guy and he's trying to turn away from her, his face, his expression, and his movement to turn away is like, and the way she's like right up, it's like flipping out. This is quite eerie and very. For something that was made so many years ago, it really rings true for our current situation. It's like, it's an uncomfortable scene in a way.
She should have licked him. But yeah, you're right, and I think it's interesting that in early TNG original series and DS9 we have a sort of virus outbreak episode. Do you think it's kind of a story where you can get to know the characters a bit? These quite newly introduced characters, because it's sort of a bottle episode, really, isn't it? Except for the bit where Kira goes off in a shuttle. But it's a good opportunity to get to know your main cast a bit. Actually, if everyone's infected.
Well, it's interesting because Roddenberry very much viewed Naked Time and Naked Now is exactly that the whole intoxication was a story device for people to let slip their vulnerable inner feelings. And it's this great way for early on them to become so open and you to get to know them. So hence why you have scenes like Spock breaking down about trying to control his dual heritage and Kirk about the women under his command and things like that. And so Naked Now was rehashed purely so for Roddenberry to say, this is who our characters are now, and this is how you're going to get to know them in one episode flat. Whereas Deep Space Nine, as you say, it does the same thing, but without having to have this drunk disease going around.
Yeah.
Because we get to see how the characters act under a crisis in a very interesting way.
Plus, it starts a really great trope in DS9 where O'Brien suffers.
Yes.
Because he's like, the first 5 minutes of the episode is basically just everyone getting up in O'Brien's face, telling him about everything that's broken on the station.
That he has to personally fix.
Like he's the only member of the engineering crew.
Yeah.
Poor O'Brien. And then so, that which nearly sort of breaks him emotionally. And he gets pretty sassy with old Captain Sisko.
He does.
And then I loved how right at the end of the episode, the virus, cure is found, that everything's kind of over. And then Sisko goes to a replicator and gets himself a coffee. And he tastes it, and there's something wrong with it. And he's like, O'Brien?
O'Brien!
Fucking hell, give the guy a break. He nearly died.
This coffee tastes like shit. It is shit. Sisko.
I was hoping that would be a recurring thing, that every so often at the end of an episode, something Cisco would discover some sort of scheme had gone awry. I'd be like, O'Brien! But it didn't happen that way.
No. Should we talk about the last episode that we're going to discuss, which is the classic Voyager episode, Macrocosm?
Yes.
Because this episode is a bit silly, but
just a little bit,
especially after the fairly serious DS9 episode. But it's an absolute blast, isn't it? I love it. So as I think we haven't we discussed it very briefly off podcast.
We did.
But in this episode, so Janeway and Neelix are off on thanks, Rick. Off on a little mission to talk to some pretty crazy aliens who have some really unusual sign language. The tac,
which we once again had to keep explaining to our kids. Why is he doing that?
Yeah. So our daughter couldn't sleep last night, so she came down to watch it, and she was really confused by the tac.
She was.
She's like, "Why are they like that? Why are they doing that?
Why is he looking up like that?"
Basically, that is Janeway's reaction as well.
But interesting, an aside. As you and I discussed last night, there it wasn't the normal TNG snootiness. Let's laugh at the silly aliens and their silly ways. She was just frustrated. Janeway was frustrated with the tac because she couldn't get them. She couldn't understand them. She couldn't talk to them.
I have studied chromolinguistics, American Sign Language, the gestural idioms of the Leiron. But I just couldn't get the hang of the tac.
And that frustration was sort of on. It was inward looking. It was on herself that she had failed in being able to communicate with them.
She found them, quite difficult. They're obviously not the most forgiving species, but it wasn't that they were stupid and their silly alien ways. So I found that quite heartening.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of an aside.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they get back to the
ship,
and the ship. No one's there. Like, what the hell is going on? Everything
is moved, hasn't it? It's not where it should be.
That's it. Yeah. And it turns out all of the crew are holed up in the the mess hall.
Yeah.
And they sort of make their way there, but on the way, Neelix gets attacked by some kind of beastie.
Gets gooped.
And it's an oddly structured episode because we're probably about 20 minutes in before Janeway finds that the Doctor, the EMH, is still active, and he then goes into the actual story of what's happened. And that takes up a big chunk of the episode. And a virus that they found a planet where the population were infected with a virus, and is it like a mine? I think.
Yeah.
And the virus has absorbed some growth hormones, and it has left the microscopic world and entered the macroscopic world, and it is now a big virus that you actually have to fight with your hand or a knife or a phaser rifle.
Stabby virus.
And so. Yeah, the difference in this episode compared with the other episodes is that the virus is like an alien beastie that you have to physically fight, which is interesting.
I've only just thought of, how does it fly? The big one, the really big one.
Yeah, because I don't think it has wings, does it? It buzzes like a fly. That's a good point. Yeah, how can it? Because there's gravity on the ship, and it's big. So
maybe we're looking at flies all wrong. Maybe the wings are just a complete red herring, and it's buzzing that makes them fly.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think you discovered something there.
Yeah, that headcanon works for me.
Maybe it's just full of air.
I didn't discover it. The CGI guys from Voyager discovered it.
Yeah, maybe it's like, or maybe it's full of helium.
Like a balloon. Yeah, it's like a balloon.
Yeah.
They do look a bit inflated.
They do.
But then when Janeway stabs one, surely it would have just flown around crazy going...
Yeah. But I think the most sort of outbreaky / virusy parts of the episode are in the flashbacks where we see the early stages of the infection. And similarly with the DS9 episode, it comes down to a replicator but it's the biogel that's got infected, hasn't it? And it explodes all over B'Elanna's face. And then she gets a hand. Oh, is it?
Calm
Sorry.
down.
The doctor,
remembering that fruitier than
because the doctor had been there's been a distress. There had been a distress call, hadn't there, at a mining colony, and the doctor went down to try and help out. And when he came back, he in the brief moment he applied the biofilters or whatever. This virus was able to get out and infect that bioneural gel pack. The rest is
and the symptoms are everyone gets sweaty and hot, so a fever again.
Yeah.
And then just
nauseous, just ill,
being really poorly.
Yeah.
But the real threat in the episode is then the virus becomes a physical threat, and that's the real threat in the episode, I think. And Janeway gets really hot, so she strips down to her vest.
Yeah, she was wearing 3 layers.
It's a lot. I was thinking that's a lot of layers, isn't it?
It's funny, when we were watching The Naked Now at dinner time, our daughter Emily said, if Geordie's really hot, he's wearing a long sleeve top. So that is a really good point. He's made no effort to try and cool down, has he? He's not even taken a shower in all his clothes.
He should have gone to t-shirt.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, she gets her. She's in a sweaty vest.
Yeah,
she's in a kind of a la Ripley. She's got some sort of harness. It's a bag. Is it a bag? Yeah, no, it's a bag.
It's an action bag full of weapons and bombs and stuff.
And
I love. There's a really brutal part of the episode where, to sort of distract the physical viruses, they activate the holodeck. And it's just really horrible. They open up the doors and there's all these people. It's like a holodeck version of sort of Riser, it looks like. It's horrific. All these viruses come in and start attacking the people. And Janeway's like, ha, 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 ha. Oh, geez, the doctor's right there, Janeway. How does he feel about that? And then I love that the solution is to make a kind of it's like an antigen bomb or something. She describes it as, which she's going to detonate because they can't. They've got a solution, but they can't release the antidote as a gas for reasons. And so Janeway makes it into a bomb.
And her little face.
She has a really cool one-liner, and I can't remember what it is. Something like, we need to drop the bomb on this virus. But it's better than that. less literal. I've just described what he does. No, but it's cooler than that. I'll get it in the clip, and I'll pretend I'll edit it so it's like I remembered it.
I put together what you might call an antigen bomb. Now all I have to do is drop it.
But yeah, I think it's fair to say that the CG effects in this episode haven't maybe aged well. There's a particularly ropey effect right near the end where Janeway is sort of wrestling with a virus.
Hand to hand.
And her hands are all over the place, and the virus is like sort of, it does not look like she's wrestling with that virus, I've got to say.
No.
But that is part of the fun of this episode. I think it doesn't take anything away from it. It makes it more, as you say, more charming. Actually, yeah. But yeah. What do you guys? What did you guys think of this episode?
I thought it was a fun sort of B-movie episode. It's the concept of the macrovirus is a bit daft, but I did like that, and I think that it's nice to have that kind of use the Doctor as the sort of flashback device to set up what happened, and it's always good to have that moment where, like we were talking about before, like there's always a point in these episodes where they know what's happening and they're trying to contain it, and that doesn't work, and then they have to deal with an outbreak, basically. I thought that I felt that whilst silly, the macroviruses are quite threatening. They're weird looking, and I don't get how you kill a macrovirus by stabbing it, because what are you killing?
Yeah.
It doesn't have a heart.
Or a brain.
Yeah. But the thing, like with stuff like this, for me, I don't mind the kind of the ropey special effects. If anything, they sort of give it a bit of charm, because like in old B movies, you can clearly tell, you can see what's going on. And I felt that with this, with the bit where like the Doctor's kind of he's holding a macrovirus, and basically they've gone to Robert Picardo and gone, look, Bobby. I'm sure they call him Bobby. Look, Bobby. So here's what's happening. Your character has to kind of wrestle with this sort of beach ball with spiky legs macrovirus monster. Can you do that for me? Can you do that for me, Bobby? And he's like, I can. And he does.
Yeah.
And so
I think he's like, wait a minute, let me check my contract. Okay, I have to do it. Yeah.
So I don't know. I if anything, that added some charm to it for me. It's because I think with something like this, you kind of have to enjoy that element of it, the silliness. But it did still have that kind of. It still did still have the same sort of progression that all the other episodes have had in terms of a viral outbreak, I thought.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it does have that. It sort of taps into that horror of, like you say, like a virus that's out of control and you can't contain it anymore. And those scenes, there was like a real sense of sort of panic. It's like, well, what are they going to do? It's too late. The virus is everywhere. And I thought those were sort of some quite effective moments of horror. And actually, there's some scene quite early on when they get into the ship and it's abandoned. Well, it's not abandoned, but it's empty. They don't know where everyone is. Some of those scenes are pretty eerie, and some effective horror there. I thought,
there's a lot there that's reminiscent of Next Gen's Genesis, in that the captain and another crew member come back, find the ship adrift. And there's sort of a very haunted house feel as they explore the ship and try and determine what's happened. I suppose Genesis could have qualified for discussion here, because that's essentially a contagious viral thing that goes around and de-evolves everyone. But we'll maybe save that if we ever do a follow-up on this episode.
Yeah, but I guess we did talk about Genesis in our nutty season 7 episodes. Look, so if you'd like, listeners, if you want to hear us talk about Genesis, go check out that episode. But you're right,
and I've got to second what Rick says about the effects, because if we got all hung up about how great the effects were, how would we ever watch the original series again? But
I love that they went all out and they tried with this episode, and you got to kind of imagine a special effects guy sort of going, guys, I don't think this is going to look very good. Like we've only got the money to sort of do 2 or 3 shots of these macrovirus beasties, and this is it's going to take us a day to render this effect, and this is the best. I don't think this is really going to work. And they kind of go, That's fine. We've got 26 episodes of this season. People will let this one go. Just do it. Just churn it out.
I think though there was a tendency to be very accepting of CGI effects, particularly in the early days, because it was so like we've never seen anything like this. I think that maybe they suffer when you look back, but probably at the time. I mean, I remember at the time thinking, "My God, these are like massive flying germs. That's incredible." Now when I watch it, I'm like, I kind of feel they should have given Kate Mulgrew something physical to interact with.
Yeah.
Because actually, that's maybe more of an issue. There may have been more realism if she actually had a solid object, even if they just gave her an overinflated beach ball to work with when she's trying to wrestle this thing. Like you say,
you're right. Actually,
her hands are everywhere.
Yeah, they are. She's very handsy with that virus. But it's not. Yeah, it's not the CGI, which admittedly has not aged well. It's not just that. It's the
interaction.
It's how and clearly she was just told, a crazy virus is coming at you. React, stab it, Kate.
Stab.
They're like, oh, that wasn't very good, but shooting is wrapped for today. It's 5:00, so sorry, guys. but I have a lot of fondness for this episode. Actually, I think it's a really fun one to watch.
Well, I think what's really important about it is that it shows a great new side to Janeway. That she gets down to, she does the Die Hard thing, like with Starship Mine for Picard. That shows our elder, stately gentleman known for his diplomacy and negotiation to be able to like lay traps and crawl about crawl spaces and beat guys up in single combat. And likewise, Janeway can like face off a weird monster. She goes all Die Hard, crawls about, and does the does the kick-ass action hero stuff. So,
yeah, you're right. If you were going to pick an episode that portrayed Janeway's badass side, this would be a good one to pick, I think. Can anyone think of any other virus episodes or sort of outbreak episodes that we could have picked? Because you're right. Yeah, you're right about Genesis, Rick. I think that would be a really good one that we could have gone with. And yes, and I guess in late DS9 there is a disease which is affecting the founders, isn't there?
Yes, of course, yeah.
That runs over many episodes.
And in Voyager, there's is it the Vidians who have the phage?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But I guess we see them as after the effect of a. Because the phage isn't particularly infectious. It's ravaged the Vidian society, hasn't it? So it's more the effect that it's had on them. They're almost like a post-apocalyptic society, I suppose.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that's a society that's been destroyed by a virus, and they're sort of coping with the effects of it. Another Voyager episode I was thinking of. Do you remember the one where there are duplicate? There's like a duplicate Voyager, and they all start. I mean, it's not a virus, but they all start breaking down, don't they? And
yeah, that's heartrending.
Oh,
definitely.
There's also that one where Chakotay and Janeway get a disease and have to stay on that planet.
Oh
yeah. That's right. There's a original series episode where there is a disease where I think that the main character's been down to a planet, and if they leave, then this disease is going to affect them.
The Omega Glory.
Yes, yeah. Which is a weird episode.
Oh, there's also that episode of TNG where Riker gets trombone fever. You just can't stop playing that trombone.
Tromboner fever.
Yeah. Oh hell. Well, that's one of the symptoms, isn't it? I think of trombone fever.
He had that the whole 7 seasons.
Yeah, he was patient zero of trombone fever.
Yeah. there's some great sort of isolation episodes of Star Trek. Actually, we could have looked at the Void from Voyager, where which is the one where they go into a sort of region of space where it's just empty. There's no stars or anything, and they really suffer kind of psychologically as they're traveling through that space.
Yeah, because Neelix request to replicate curtains for the windows in his room, so he doesn't have to stare out into the void all the time.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, that's a great episode, I think.
Observer effect on Enterprise when Hoshi and Trip are infected, and they have to stay in isolation. And it turns out it's the Organians have deliberately infected them to see how they react, and they do this to lots of people.
Oh yeah,
that's a good one. Learning curve when all the gel packs get infected with the virus.
Oh yeah.
That's quite a good.
And there's an episode of Enterprise that I love where they're all going through. Maybe it's in the third season. Dr. Phlox is basically the only person who's still awake. Everyone has to go into sort of hibernation as they go through a highly radiated part of space or something. And T'Pol is with him.
But it turns out
she's a head character. He was kind of going nuts in isolation. I love that episode.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Yeah. But yeah, those are some of the episodes that you could have had, listeners. And instead, we chose a mixed bag of virus outbreak episodes.
Of course, if you're sick of the coronavirus and being isolated and hearing about it all the time, this is probably a terrible episode to have listened to at all.
Yeah. You're right about that. We wanted to be kind of topical, but really, we haven't helped anyone, have we? What would you say if you had to pick a favourite out of these episodes that we've chosen? What would you go for? Yeah. I would as well. Yeah, I would.
I think Babel is probably on all fronts ticks all the boxes and is the best. I'm very nostalgic for The Naked Now because it was the first Trek I've ever watched, and I just really enjoy Macrocosm because it's so much fun.
It is.
Yeah. I think Babel is the best, it's the highest quality one. But I would say any of the others, all of them are pretty great in one way or another. I really like the Naked Time because that's the original series episode that I hadn't watched a lot, and it felt like I was watching it for the first time because I remembered so little about it. And it's really good. So I might pick the Naked Time just because of that novelty of that felt like the one I hadn't seen before. So it was nice to watch that almost new.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think Impulse is an absolutely cracking Enterprise action episode.
Yeah.
I don't know if it sort of captures the horror of a virus outbreak like the other episodes do, but I think it's a thrill ride.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It is.
I just wanted to sing its praises a little bit because I really love that episode.
Don't you?
Yes. Well, guys, we're nearly an hour and 20 minutes in. I think we should think about drawing this episode to a close.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say these words. But does anyone have any final thoughts?
No.
Yes.
No, me neither.
Brilliant. No, you don't.
No, I
don't. Cool. Oh well, thanks very much for listening, everyone.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed doing this one. It's been fun, hasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of fun. Stay safe.
Yeah, a little bit of escapism.
Yeah,
yeah. Definitely take your mind off the old virus outbreak that's going on in the real world by listening to our podcast where we discuss virus outbreaks. But yes. As Rick says, stay safe, everyone.
Indeed.
And we'll continue producing podcasts for your entertainment.
Yes. Hopefully without touching on subjects that just remind you of the grim situation of your reality.
Yes. And definitely not touching our listeners.
No.
Because,
Not that they're not touchable.
No. But,
I mean,
we're isolating.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Once this is all over, we'll touch you as much as you want.
If you want,
definitely.
As much as you want.
If anyone wants,
or as little,
or as little as you want.
Please send me a letter to 29. I'm not going to give out my address.
Jesus.
You just never know. Cool. Well, on that weird note, let's say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Do you realize how incredible this is? It's tradition.
You ever noticed her bum? What? Her bum.
Oh no!
I will say
Fewer
things.
Okay.
Enough of this self-indulgence.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, our website is www.lowerdexradio.co.uk. You can reach us on the Twitters at 10Backward, 10 being the number and backward being the word backward. We're also on Facebook at www.facebook.com/10Backward podcast. You can also email us at crew@lowerdexradio.co.uk. On a personal, individual level, my Twitter is @WiltHerland. Rick Everson's Twitter is @TrekFanRick. And Rick Palmer's Twitter is @MrImhotep.
Hi, thank you again for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you might consider supporting us. We now have a Patreon where people can pledge small amounts to fund our ongoing projects like keeping our website up to date, new audio equipment as we're going along, and potentially opportunities to expand our content. You can go look at this at patreon.com/lowerdexradio. If you don't feel you can donate but would still like to support us, we would love it if you could subscribe to us on however you get your podcasts, through iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or we're on various third-party apps. And if you could leave us a review on any of those, that would be fantastic and would be very appreciative.
Thanks again for listening, and please tune in for more podcasts from the 10 Backward crew.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name.
10 Backward?
Laddie, don't you think you should rephrase that?
10 Backward.
10 Backward.
Bread.